Hello, ladies.
Good afternoon.
How are you, honey?
So, do you have a message to your family, friends? How you're doing? How you're holding up? You miss them? And then there's Fred.
I'm fine. I hope everybody's healthy and see you soon. Hopefully, anyways.
Here's trouble right here.
Looking back at you.
Do you have something to say to your family and your friends?
No, just let them know I'm okay. You know, I'll always be okay. Bye.
Welcome back, everyone. Those were greetings from the residents of Wikwemikong Nursing Home on Manitoulin Island, Ontario. In our series, Crisis in Care, we're talking about long-term care homes, and today in particular, our discussion is focusing on honoring culture in these facilities. Well, joining us now is the administrator from Wikwemikong Nursing Home, Cheryl Osawabine-Peltier. Welcome, Cheryl.
Hi.
And we'd also like to welcome Amy Go. She has spent more than 2 decades in immigrant, community, and elder care services, including at Yihong Center for Geriatric Care, which specializes in culturally appropriate services for East and South Asian seniors. Amy, welcome to you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Listen, I love the tape that we started with there, Cheryl. And, that video was actually made well at the beginning of this pandemic. How are your residents doing now that we're, many, 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 many months in, and how have they been coping this past year?
They're all still doing good. We're all hanging in there. And we work really hard to try and bring normalcy to the residents, the things that they were used to doing. Usually at this time, we'd be taking them out going shopping at the mall where they could get clothes or any essential items that they need. So we couldn't do that. And then with the stay-at-home order in place, we had to think about what can we do. So we went out to the community. We asked for some donations. They donated clothes, treats, shampoos, and everything. We laid it all out. We gave the residents money, and they went shopping. One gentleman, he just stacked up his cart with so many treats, and he looked at me. He says, "I just can't stop. I just can't stop shopping." And they were just so amazed,
We heard in that video some of the residents speaking of Ojibwe, which is one of the languages spoken at that facility. Amy, I want to turn this over to you because let's talk about language and why it's important for residents to speak and hear their native tongue.
Many of them actually suffer from dementia. Unfortunately, they revert to their mother tongues. Before I left Yihong, we actually admitted a resident who actually was staying in another home, which is an English-speaking environment, before coming to Yihong. On the first day of admission, her daughter was so shocked and went up to a social worker. "Did you know that I hear my mother speaking Cantonese?" And we went, okay, because the mother was answering questions of the staff. Her mother has not spoken for more than a year in the other home before coming to. On the first day, surrounded by familiar faces, staff-friendly faces, staff who spoke her language, she answered the questions appropriately, and the daughter was so shocked.
Wow, unbelievable. And Cheryl, this it also applies to your home because I understand that there, about 75% of the staff have Indigenous backgrounds. Also, many of them speaking the different languages or dialects. But for those that don't speak Ojibwe, for example, or any of the other dialects, how does your home bridge that divide for that small portion of the staff?
So pre-COVID, we had identified this gap because like what Amy had said, like they do when you have dementia, they go back to their first language, and a lot of them it's in the Ojibwe language. So we actually had somebody come in and teach us the Ojibwe language. So they were teaching the staff. And then we went into the outbreak, so we had to get a little bit more creative. So we actually go back to our residents and we ask them to teach especially our nursing staff. Like if you want to communicate with them, our nursing staff needs to figure out like little keywords like pill, like here's your pill. So they'll say, here's your coconuts. That's what pill means. Or asking if they're in pain, like gagi this. That means like, are you in pain? Are you hungry? Bakade. You know, so our nurses have learned these little phrases so that they can communicate, even if it's just the one word.
Amy, at Yihong, you have worked with many patients with dementia, and we know that people who suffer from this condition can experience short-term memory loss, but retain long-term memory. So, can you talk about why it's important to create a safe and familiar environment for seniors?
In our home at Yihong Markham, we actually serve both Chinese speaking as well as South Asian Canadian seniors. And some of them are from Sri Lanka. And many of them actually went through the war, the civil war within in Sri Lanka. We have this resident who constantly was screaming and talking to herself, actually, and just kept talking, and very anxious, very anxious. So, but good thing our staff understood her language. It was Tamil. The staff was saying that she was all about war in the battle zone. She was kept saying like, hide, there was like gunshots or bombs, and she was in her war zone, right? And to us, we need to understand that. Good thing is that the staff understood that. We have to work with the team, of course, with the family, with the doctors, with our interdisciplinary team to ensure that the proper care is provided to her. Many of the seniors actually experience post-traumatic incidents. For example, Chinese Canadian seniors who went through the occupation of Hong Kong by Japanese Imperial Army. We have seniors who was like trying to dig a hole in the wall. And we were like fearing, why is he so anxious and really trying to hide or trying to get away, but I keep digging a hole in the wall. And we found out that the senior actually was captured and imprisoned by the military army in Hong Kong, by the Japanese army. And of course, going through that traumatic experience. And unfortunately, they were reliving it. That dementia has brought them back to that era. And it took the staff to understand this post-traumatic care, the importance of that, to understand the culture, to understand the language, so that we can provide that support, we can provide the attention, as well as, of course, treatment that would be appropriate for the seniors.
We've covered a little bit about language and familiar settings and the experience of caregivers. Let's now talk about food. I think about my ma, who is Chinese from Hong Kong. She does not eat Western food. So when we're talking about residents in these kinds of facilities, Cheryl, what sorts of foods and traditions do residents ask for, and what are provided for them, and how do you meet their requests?
Yes, definitely. Food is very, very important. Like here we promote, like it's very important to practice your culture, speak the language, use the traditional medicine, but it also, like, food is so important. And like our residents will ask for, like the seasonal traditional food. So like in the fall, they'll be asking us for deer meat and moose meat because they were used to going out hunting. They're used to eating fish. So we do get fish donated to the home as well. The smelts, a lot of people don't know what smelts are, but they're little fish there. And the residents were asking for smelts. So we got a donation from the community. They were brought into the home, and the residents took part in cleaning, preparing, and our food service supervisor cooked the smelts up for them. And this is something that they were so used to eating, like as a child, as a teenager. And as they sat there cleaning the smelts, they would sit there and talk about how they used to clean, like with their mom, their grandma, their aunts, and they would teach like our staff all about, like the way it was when they were growing up.
So great. Those are so great. Those photos and the stories, I'm sure, that come out of that experience. Amy, in my Filipino culture, it is very customary to have many generations in one family, and certainly grandparents helping to raise their own grandchildren as well. That is how I was raised. But for some, then there may even be a stigma and difficulty if it is decided upon that perhaps their loved one does need additional care outside of that family home. What advice can you give to ease the transition for a family and for someone who does need to move to a different residency and into a home?
Absolutely. I see it within my own family. I was fortunate, in fact, privileged to have taken care of my mother before she passed away for a year and a half. And my aunt in Edmonton, because of the circumstances beyond the control of my cousins, couldn't do that. So she was admitted to a retirement home. And unfortunately, she did get COVID last year. You can imagine the devastating impact of that on my cousins. We are a very close knit family, and so it was just that tremendous amount of guilt that they carry, that they had to put the mother in the retirement home, and they felt so, so bad that she now caught, COVID. So it is that understanding as a care provider in long-term care or retirement home, that we had to understand and appreciate where the families are coming from, empathize and understand and work with them, right? So invite them, embrace them, be part of the team. And if there are questions, don't hesitate to respond, and be open-minded to suggestions and recommendations. So embrace the caregivers because it is important for seniors, be it they are in long-term care or retirement home, that they stay connected to that network of support.
We really, really appreciate you sharing your experiences with us today. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll be back after this.